The blood on the wagon wheel was the first thing Owen Sinclair noticed as he rode into the canyon that sweltering afternoon in July of 1876. His horse kicking up dust, devils with each weary step through the Arizona territory between Tucson and Florence. Owen had been riding for 3 days straight, coming back from a cattle drive that had taken him clear up to Prescott, and all he wanted was a bath, a hot meal, and about 14 hours of sleep in his own bed at his ranch outside Florence. But the sight before him made him pull his horse to a stop so fast the animal whinnied in protest. There was a wagon stopped in the middle of the trail, its canvas covering torn and flapping in the hot wind, and sitting on the ground beside it was a woman. She was not just sitting there. She was chained to the wagon wheel. Owen sat frozen for a moment, his hand instinctively moving to the revolver at his hip as his eyes scanned the surrounding rocks and scrub brush for any sign of whoever had done this. The canyon walls rose up on either side, casting long shadows despite the afternoon sun, and nothing moved except a lizard skittering across a rock. He dismounted slowly, keeping his gun hand free, and approached the wagon on foot. The woman looked up at him as he came closer, and Owen felt something catch in his chest. She could not have been more than 22 or 23 years old, with dark hair that hung in tangled waves around her face and eyes that were an unusual shade of green, even dulled by exhaustion and fear. Her dress was torn and dirty, and there was a bruise forming on her left cheekbone. The chain around her ankle was heavy iron, the kind used for prisoners, and it was secured to the wagon wheel with a padlock that looked new. "Please," she said, her voice hoarse and cracked from what must have been hours in the desert heat. "Please, do you have water?" Owen did not answer right away. He was still scanning the area, his instincts screaming at him that this could be a trap. Outlaws sometimes used women as bait to lure in unsuspecting travelers. But when he looked back at her face and saw the desperation there, the way her lips were cracked and bleeding, he knew she was not acting. He pulled his canteen from his saddle and brought it to her, kneeling down and holding it to her lips. She drank greedily, water spilling down her chin, and he had to pull it away after a moment. "Slow down," he said gently. "You will make yourself sick." She nodded, gasping, and wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. Thank you so much." "Who did this to you?" Owen asked, examining the chain. It was secured tight with no slack, and the padlock was good quality steel. "Where are they?" "Gone," she said, and there was a tremor in her voice that spoke of terror barely contained. "They left me here yesterday morning, said they were coming back, but they never did." "Who left you?" She hesitated, and Owen saw fear flash across her face. "Men who bought me in Tucson," she said finally, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "I was traveling with a wagon train from Missouri, heading to California with my aunt and uncle. We were ambushed 3 weeks ago by raiders. They killed my uncle and took me and my aunt. They sold my aunt in New Mexico territory and brought me to Tucson to sell." Owen felt anger rising in his chest, hot and fierce. He knew the trade existed, knew that men bought and sold women like cattle in certain corners of the territory where law was scarce and morality even scarcer. But knowing it existed and seeing the evidence of it in front of him were two very different things. "What is your name?" he asked, already reaching for the tools in his saddlebag. "Willa," she said. "Willa Monroe." "I am Owen Sinclair," he said, pulling out a hammer and a thick piece of iron he used for breaking stubborn rocks. "I am going to get you free, Willa. This might be loud, so do not be startled." It took him 10 minutes of hard work in the blazing sun to break the lock. He did not have the right tools for it, and he had to be careful not to hit the chain itself where it might ricochet and hurt her. Sweat poured down his face and soaked his shirt, but finally, The lock gave way with a satisfying crack and fell to the dust. Willa pulled her leg free immediately, but when she tried to stand, her legs buckled under her. Owen caught her before she fell, and she was lighter than he expected, her body trembling against his. "Easy," he said. "When did you last eat?" "3 days ago," she whispered. "Maybe 4. I have lost track." Owen helped her sit back down in the shade of the wagon and went to retrieve his saddlebags. He had jerky and hardtack, not much, but enough to give her some strength. He made her eat slowly while he examined the wagon more carefully. The inside was mostly empty, just some supplies that looked like they had been picked through already. There was dried blood on the wagon bed, and Owen felt his jaw tighten. Whatever had happened here had not been clean or quick. He found a blanket that was relatively intact and brought it out to Willa. "Can you ride?" he asked her. She looked up at him with those green eyes, and he saw hope warring with fear in them. "I think so. Where are you taking me?" "Florence," he said. "I have a ranch just outside town. You can rest there, get cleaned up, and we can figure out what to do next." "What if they come back?" she asked, glancing around nervously. "The men who left me here, what if they are watching?" "Then they will have to deal with me," Owen said grimly. "And I promise you, Miss Monroe, I am not as easy to handle as you were." He helped her up onto his horse, then climbed up behind her. She was stiff at first, clearly uncomfortable with the proximity. But as they started moving and her exhaustion caught up with her, she slowly relaxed back against his chest. Owen kept his arm around her waist to steady her and kept his eyes on the trail and the rocks around them. The ride to his ranch took 2 hours, and by the time they arrived, the sun was setting in a blaze of orange and red across the desert sky. Willa had fallen asleep against him, her head resting on his shoulder, and Owen found himself reluctant to wake her. She looked younger when she slept, the lines of fear and pain smoothing from her face. His ranch was modest, a single-story adobe house with a barn and a corral for his horses. He had 40 acres of land, most of it scrub and rock, but there was a good spring that kept a small creek running year-round, and he had built the house near it for that reason. He had been working the ranch for 3 years now, since he was 25, and he had built it all himself after leaving his job as a ranch hand on a bigger spread near Tombstone. He dismounted carefully and lifted Willa down, and this time when her legs threatened to give out, he simply picked her up and carried her inside. She woke briefly, her eyes fluttering open. "Where are we?" she murmured. "Home," Owen said, and pushed the door open with his boot. The inside of the house was simple but clean. One large room served as kitchen and living area, with a fireplace on one wall and a table and chairs in the center. There were 2 bedrooms off to the side, and Owen carried Willa into the smaller one, laying her down on the bed. "I am going to get some water heated so you can wash," he said. "There is a dress in the trunk at the foot of the bed that belonged to my sister. She left it here last time she visited. It might be a bit big, but it will be clean." Willa nodded, her eyes already closing again. Owen covered her with a blanket and went back outside to tend to his horse and get water from the well. While the water heated over the fire, he found himself glancing toward the bedroom door repeatedly, making sure she was still there, still real, not some heat-induced hallucination from too many days in the sun. When the water was warm, he poured it into a basin and brought it to her, along with soap and a cloth. She was awake again, sitting up on the bed and looking around the room with cautious curiosity. "Thank you," she said softly as he set the basin down. "You have been very kind." "Any decent man would have done the same," Owen said. "You would be surprised how few decent men there are," Willa replied, and there was such bitterness in her voice that Owen felt his chest tighten. He left her alone to wash and went to make dinner. He did not have much, beans and cornbread and some dried beef, but he made it as palatable as he could. By the time she emerged from the bedroom, cleaned up and wearing his sister's blue calico dress, he had the food on the table and coffee brewing. Willa looked different cleaned up. Her dark hair, still damp, fell in soft waves to her shoulders, and without the dirt and exhaustion masking her features, he could see that she was beautiful in a quiet, understated way. The bruise on her cheek stood out more now against her clean skin, and Owen had to resist the urge to ask who had hit her and where he could find them. They ate in silence at first, Willa focusing intently on her food like she was afraid it might disappear. Owen let her eat her fill before he spoke. "You said the men who had you were planning to come back," he said. "Do you know who they were? Did you hear any names?" Willa set down her fork and wrapped her arms around herself. "The man who bought me was named Callahan. Jack Callahan. He had 2 men with him, brothers I think, but I never heard their names. They were taking me to Florence to sell me to a saloon owner there." Owen felt his blood run cold. He knew Jack Callahan. Everyone in Florence knew Jack Callahan. He ran the biggest saloon in town and had his fingers in half the illegal activities in the territory. Owen had never liked the man, had avoided his establishment, but he had not realized the extent of what Callahan was involved in. "They chained you to the wagon and just left you?" Owen asked. "They argued," Willa said quietly. "Callahan wanted to take me straight to Florence, but the brothers wanted to go after some prospector they had heard about who supposedly struck silver. They fought about it for hours, and finally Callahan said he would go with the brothers to check it out, but he did not trust leaving me alone in camp. So he chained me to the wagon and said they would be back by nightfall." Her voice shook. "That was almost 2 days ago." "They might have run into trouble," Owen said. "Or they might have decided you were not worth coming back for." "What do I do?" Willa asked, and Owen could hear the fear in her voice. "If Callahan finds out you took me, he will come after you. He paid for me. In his mind, I belong to him." "You do not belong to anyone," Owen said firmly. "You are a free woman and no man has the right to buy or sell you. I do not care what Callahan thinks he paid for." Willa looked at him for a long moment, her green eyes searching his face. "Why are you helping me?" she asked finally. "You do not know me. This could bring you nothing but trouble." Owen thought about that. He could have ridden past the wagon, could have told himself it was not his business, could have kept going to Florence and his comfortable bed and forgotten he ever saw a woman chained in the desert. "Because it is the right thing to do," he said simply. "And because no woman should have to go through what you have been through." Tears welled up in Willa's eyes and she looked away quickly, brushing at them with the back of her hand. "I thought no one was going to stop," she whispered. "I thought I was going to die out there." Owen reached across the table and took her hand. It was an impulsive gesture and he half expected her to pull away, but instead her fingers tightened around his. "You are safe now," he said. "I give you my word." They sat like that for a moment, connected across the table, and Owen felt something shift in his chest. He had been alone for a long time, by choice mostly, focusing on building his ranch and staying out of trouble. But sitting here with this woman, seeing the gratitude and trust beginning to bloom in her eyes despite everything she had been through, he felt something he had not felt in years: hope. Over the next few days, Willa slowly recovered her strength. Owen gave her the smaller bedroom and took to sleeping on a bedroll in the main room, insisting that she needed the privacy and comfort more than he did. During the days, she helped around the house, cooking and cleaning despite his protests that she should rest. She said it felt good to be useful, to have control over something in her life again. Owen found himself looking forward to coming back to the house after working with his small herd of cattle or mending fences. Willa had a quiet humor that emerged once she felt safer, and she was intelligent and observant. She asked him about the ranch, about his life, and listened with genuine interest as he talked about his plans to expand his herd and maybe hire on some help next year. In turn, she told him about her life before. She had grown up in St. Louis, the daughter of a schoolteacher and a seamstress. Both her parents had died of fever 3 years ago, and she had gone to live with her aunt and uncle in Missouri. When they decided to head west to California to open a shop in Sacramento, she had jumped at the chance for a fresh start. "I wanted adventure," she said one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset. "I wanted to see the wide open spaces and the mountains and the ocean. I wanted to feel alive," she laughed bitterly. "I got more adventure than I bargained for." "What happened with the raiders?" Owen asked gently. "You do not have to talk about it if you do not want to." Willa was quiet for a moment, her hands clasped in her lap. "We were 5 days out from Albuquerque," she said finally. "There were 8 wagons in our train. The raiders came at dawn, maybe 20 of them. They shot the men first, then rounded up the women and children. They took everything of value from the wagons and set them on fire." Her voice was flat, emotionless, but Owen could see her hands shaking. "They killed my uncle when he tried to fight them. My aunt threw herself over his body, screaming, and one of the raiders knocked her unconscious. They took us both, along with 3 other women from the train." "What about the children?" Owen asked. "They left them," Willa said. "Just left them there crying next to the burning wagons. I hope someone found them. I hope they survived." Owen felt sick. He had heard stories like this before, but hearing it from someone who had lived through it was different. "I am sorry," he said inadequately. "The raiders took us to a camp in the mountains," Willa continued, staring out at the darkening sky. "They kept us there for almost a week. Then they started selling us. The first woman went to a mine owner in New Mexico. The second went to someone in Texas. They sold my aunt to a rancher who said he needed a cook." She paused. "I do not know if she is still alive. I hope she is. I hope she got away." "And then they brought you to Tucson," Owen said. Willa nodded. "They sold me to Callahan for $200. He said I was too pretty to waste on a ranch, and that he knew a place in Florence where I could make him 10 times what he paid within a year." Her voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "He said if I behaved, it would not be so bad. If I did not, he had ways of making women cooperate." Owen felt rage building in him, hot and fierce. "He will never touch you again," he said, his voice hard. "I promise you that." Willa turned to look at him, and in the fading light her eyes were luminous. "You cannot promise that," she said softly. "You cannot fight the whole world." "I can fight him," Owen said, "and anyone else who tries to hurt you." Something changed in Willa's expression, a softening, a warming. She reached out and touched his hand where it rested on the porch railing. "You barely know me," she said. "I know enough," Owen replied, and he meant it. In the days she had been at his ranch, he had come to know her strength, her resilience, her kindness despite everything she had endured. He had come to look forward to her smile, to the sound of her laughter when he told a bad joke, to the way she hummed while she cooked. He had come to care for her in a way that both excited and terrified him. They sat together as the stars came out, not talking, just being together, and Owen felt a peace he had not known in years. But peace in the Arizona Territory in 1876 was always fragile. 2 days later, Owen rode into Florence to buy supplies. It was a small town, barely more than a main street with a general store, a saloon, a hotel, and a few scattered houses. The town had grown up around a silver mine that was mostly played out now, but it remained a way station for travelers heading between Tucson and Phoenix. Owen was loading sacks of flour and beans onto his horse when he saw Jack Callahan come out of his saloon. Callahan was a big man, running to fat now but still dangerous, with cold eyes and a cruel mouth. He was dressed in a suit that was too fine for the dusty street, and he walked with the confidence of a man who owned the town. Owen kept his head down, hoping to avoid notice, but Callahan spotted him and changed direction to intercept him. "Owen Sinclair," Callahan said, his voice jovial but his eyes sharp. "I heard you were back from your drive. How did it go?" "Well enough," Owen said shortly, focusing on tying down his supplies. "You did not come by the saloon for a drink," Callahan said. "I was expecting to see you. Most men come in after a long drive." "I do not drink much," Owen said, which was true. He had seen too many men ruin themselves with whiskey to have much taste for it. Callahan laughed. "A cowboy who does not drink, that is like a fish that does not swim." He moved closer, lowering his voice. "Say, you did not happen to see anything unusual on your way back, did you? Maybe a wagon out past the canyon?" Owen felt his heart rate pick up, but he kept his face neutral. "Saw a lot of wagons. Why?" "I lost some property out that way," Callahan said, and Owen noticed his jovial tone had taken on an edge. "Very valuable property. I am looking to get it back." "What kind of property?" Owen asked, forcing himself to meet Callahan's eyes. "The kind that walks on two legs," Callahan said, dropping any pretense of friendliness. "A girl. Dark hair, green eyes, pretty. Someone cut her loose from where I left her and took her." "That someone stole from me, and I do not take kindly to thieves." "Maybe she got free on her own," Owen said. "Maybe she is halfway to California by now." "Maybe," Callahan said, but his eyes said he did not believe it. "Or maybe some fool decided to play hero and took her home with him." "That would be a mistake. That girl is mine. I paid for her and I want her back. And when I find out who took her, I am going to make an example of them." Owen felt anger rising but forced it down. Losing his temper now would only confirm Callahan's suspicions. "I will keep my eyes open," he said evenly. "If I see anything, I will let you know." "You do that," Callahan said. He stepped back but did not move away. "You know, Owen, you have a nice little ranch out there. Be a shame if anything happened to it. A fire can be a terrible thing in this dry country." It was a threat, clear and simple, and Owen felt his hand inch toward his gun. But Callahan just smiled and tipped his hat, then turned and walked back toward his saloon. Owen finished loading his supplies with hands that wanted to shake, then headed back to his ranch as fast as he could without drawing attention. His mind was racing. Callahan knew someone had taken Willa. It was only a matter of time before he figured out it was Owen, if he had not already. And when he did, he would come for her. When Owen got back to the ranch, Willa was hanging laundry on a line between two posts, humming to herself. She looked up when she heard his horse and smiled, a genuine smile that lit up her whole face. Owen felt his chest tighten. "You are back early," she said, coming over to help him unload. "I was not expecting you until evening." "We need to talk," Owen said, and the seriousness in his voice made her smile fade. They went inside, and Owen told her about his encounter with Callahan. He watched the color drain from Willa's face as he spoke, watched fear come back into her eyes after days of it slowly fading. "He is going to find me," she whispered. "He is going to take me back." "No," Owen said firmly. "I will not let that happen. How can you stop him?" Willa asked, and there was desperation in her voice. "He has men, he has money, he has the whole town afraid of him. What do you have?" "I have the truth," Owen said. "And I have right on my side. You are not his property, Willa. You are a person, and what he did is illegal." "We can go to the marshal." Willa laughed, a bitter sound. "The marshal? Owen, the marshal in Florence drinks at Callahan's saloon every night. He is not going to help us." Owen knew she was right. The law in small Arizona towns was often as corrupt as the outlaws it was supposed to be fighting. Then we will go to Tucson, he said. The territorial marshal there has more authority. We can tell him what happened and he will protect you. And leave your ranch, Willa asked. Leave everything you have worked for. Callahan will burn it to the ground the moment you are gone. Then we will rebuild, Owen said. He took her hands in his, looking into her eyes. Willa, I do not care about the ranch. I care about keeping you safe. If I have to walk away from everything here to do that, I will. Willa stared at him, tears welling in her eyes. Why? She whispered. Why would you give up everything for me? Owen realized the answer even as she asked the question. Because I am falling in love with you, he said simply. The words hung in the air between them. Willa's eyes went wide, and for a moment, Owen was terrified he had said too much, moved too fast, scared her away. But then she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him, burying her face in his chest. I am falling in love with you too, she said, her voice muffled against his shirt. I have been trying not to. I have been telling myself it is too fast, too complicated, that I am just grateful and confused. But it is more than that. You make me feel safe. You make me feel like myself again. Owen held her tight, breathing in the scent of her hair, feeling her heart beating against his chest. Then we will figure this out together, he said. Whatever happens, we will face it together. They stood like that for a long moment, and then Willa pulled back and looked up at him. Her eyes were still wet with tears, but there was determination in them now too. We cannot run, she said. If we run, we will be running forever. Callahan will never stop looking for me. He cannot afford to. If word gets out that someone stole his property and got away with it, every woman he has will try to escape. What are you suggesting? Owen asked. We stand and fight, Willa said. Not with guns, with the truth. We find a way to expose what he is doing. We get people to care. There are decent people in Florence, Owen. I have to believe that. We just need to reach them. Owen thought about that. It was dangerous, probably more dangerous than running. But it was also brave, and it gave them a chance not just to survive but to stop Callahan from hurting anyone else. All right, he said. We fight, but we do it smart. We need allies. We need proof. And we need to make sure you are protected while we are gathering it. Over the next week, they made their plans. Owen rode into Florence every day, carefully and quietly talking to people he trusted. He spoke to Maria Rodriguez, who ran the general store and had no love for Callahan after he tried to force her to sell to him for half what her shop was worth. He spoke to Samuel Wright, the blacksmith, who had turned away from Callahan's saloon after he saw how the man treated his workers. He spoke to Pastor John Freeman at the small church, who listened with growing horror to Willa's story. Slowly, carefully, they built a network of people who were willing to stand against Callahan. It was not many, just 10 or 12 people, but it was a start. Pastor Freeman agreed to write to the territorial authorities in Tucson, detailing Callahan's activities and requesting an investigation. Maria agreed to spread word among the women in town, to find out if there were others who had been victimized and might be willing to testify. During this time, Owen and Willa grew closer. In the evenings after the work was done and the plans were made, they would sit together on the porch and talk about everything and nothing. Willa told him about her childhood in St. Louis, about the books she loved to read, and the dream she once had of becoming a teacher like her father. Owen told her about growing up on a ranch in Texas, about losing his parents to cholera when he was 18, about making his way west alone to build a life for himself. One evening, as they sat watching the stars come out, Owen turned to Willa and said, "When this is over, when Callahan is dealt with and you are safe, what do you want to do?" Willa was quiet for a moment. "I do not know," she said finally. "I have been so focused on just surviving, I have not thought about what comes after." She looked at him, her green eyes reflecting the starlight. What do you want me to do? Owen took a deep breath. I want you to stay, he said. I want you to make this place your home. I want to wake up every morning and see your face. I want to build a life with you, a real life with a future. He paused. I want to marry you, Willa, if you will have me. Willa's breath caught. Owen, she whispered. I know it is fast, Owen said quickly. I know we have only known each other a few weeks, but I have never been more certain of anything in my life. You are strong and kind and brave. You make me laugh. You make me want to be better. I love you, Willa Monroe, and I want to spend the rest of my life showing you just how much. Tears were streaming down Willa's face now, but she was smiling. Yes, she said. Yes, I will marry you. I love you too, Owen. I did not think I could feel this way after everything that happened. I thought that part of me was broken, but you fixed it. You made me believe in good things again. Owen pulled her into his arms and kissed her for the first time. It was gentle and sweet and full of promise, and when they finally pulled apart, both of them were crying and laughing at the same time. When this is over, Owen said, we will do it right. We will have Pastor Freeman marry us in the church. We will invite everyone we know. We will have a real wedding. I do not need a fancy wedding, Willa said. I just need you. You deserve a fancy wedding, Owen insisted. You deserve everything good in the world. 2 days later, everything came to a head. Owen was in town again, meeting with Samuel right at the blacksmith shop, when one of Callahan's men spotted him and followed him back to the ranch. Owen saw the man, a rough character named Pete something, keeping pace about 100 yards back, and his heart sank. He had been so careful, but apparently not careful enough. When he got back to the ranch, he told Willa to pack a bag and be ready to leave at a moment's notice. Then he sat on the porch with his rifle across his lap and waited. Callahan arrived an hour later with 4 men. They rode up to the house bold as brass, not trying to hide or sneak. Callahan dismounted and walked right up to the porch like he owned the place. Owen Sinclair, he said, his voice cold. I think you have something that belongs to me. I do not know what you are talking about, Owen said, not lowering the rifle. Do not play games with me, boy, Callahan snapped. I know she is here. One of my men saw her hanging laundry 2 days ago. Now bring her out and maybe I will let you keep your ranch. She is not property, Owen said, standing up. She is a free woman and she is under my protection. Callahan laughed. Your protection? Boy, I have 10 times the men and money you do. You cannot protect her from me. He is not alone, said a voice from the side. Owen looked over to see Samuel Wright riding up, along with Maria Rodriguez and her 2 grown sons. Behind them were Pastor Freeman and 6 men from the church congregation. They all carried rifles, and they all looked determined. Callahan's face darkened. What is this? This is the decent people of Florence telling you that we are done looking the other way, Samuel said. We know what you have been doing, Callahan. We know about the women you buy and sell. We know about the girls working in your saloon who are not there by choice. It ends now. You have no authority, Callahan said, but Owen could hear uncertainty creeping into his voice. No, but I do, said another voice. Everyone turned to see a man riding up from the opposite direction. He was older, maybe 50, with a silver star pinned to his vest. Owen recognized him from wanted posters around town. It was Marshal Henry Dawson, the territorial marshal from Tucson. I received a very interesting letter from Pastor Freeman here, Marshal Dawson said, dismounting and walking toward Callahan. Detailing some serious allegations about your activities, so I thought I would come up here and investigate for myself. I have done nothing wrong, Callahan said, but his face had gone pale. That girl ran away from me. I paid good money for her, and she is mine by right of purchase. Except you cannot purchase a person, Marshal Dawson said, not legally. The 13th Amendment abolished slavery 12 years ago. Whatever transaction you think you made, it is not recognized by the United States government. In fact, what you did is kidnapping, which is a federal crime." "She was already kidnapped," Callahan protested. "I just bought her from the men who took her." "Which makes you an accessory to kidnapping," the marshal said. "And from what I hear, this is not an isolated incident. I have been asking questions around Tucson, and several people remember you buying women. Some of those women are willing to testify against you." Callahan looked around wildly, like a trapped animal looking for an escape. His men had all moved their hands away from their guns, clearly not willing to fight a territorial marshal and a dozen armed citizens. "You cannot prove anything," Callahan said desperately. "I do not have to prove it here," Marshal Dawson said. "I am arresting you and you will have your day in court. If you are innocent, as you claim, then a jury will decide that." He nodded to two deputies who had ridden up behind him. "Take him." Callahan tried to run, but he was too slow and too fat. The deputies grabbed him and wrestled him into handcuffs while he shouted and struggled. His men just sat on their horses, watching, not lifting a finger to help. Marshal Dawson turned to Owen. "I assume the young lady is inside." "Yes, sir," Owen said. "I will need to take her statement," the marshal said, "and she may need to testify at the trial, but she is free to go where she pleases. No one will bother her again." Willa appeared in the doorway of the house, having watched the whole confrontation. She looked small and fragile standing there, but there was steel in her spine and fire in her eyes. "I will testify," she said clearly. "I will tell everything that happened, and I will help you find the other women if I can." Marshal Dawson tipped his hat to her. "That is very brave, madam. We will make sure you are protected." Over the next few weeks, Florence and the surrounding territory buzzed with the news of Callahan's arrest. The investigation uncovered even more than anyone had expected. Callahan had been involved in trafficking women for years, buying them from raiders and kidnappers, and selling them throughout the territory. Several other men were arrested as part of the operation, and 6 women were freed from situations similar to Willa's. Willa gave her testimony to the marshal, and it was as hard as Owen expected it to be. She had to relive everything that had happened, every horrible moment, but she did it with a strength that made Owen's heart swell with pride and love. When she was done, she cried in his arms for an hour, but when she finally stopped, she seemed lighter somehow, like a burden had been lifted. "It is over," she whispered. "It is really over." "It is over," Owen confirmed, holding her tight. "You are free. You are safe. And you are mine if you still want to be." "I do," Willa said, pulling back to look at him. "I want to marry you, Owen Sinclair. I want to be your wife and build a life with you on this ranch and wake up next to you every morning for the rest of my life." They were married 3 weeks later in Pastor Freeman's church. The whole town turned out for the wedding, eager to celebrate the woman who had helped bring down Jack Callahan. Maria Rodriguez made Willa's dress, a beautiful white gown with lace at the collar and cuffs. Samuel Wright gave Owen a horseshoe for luck that he had personally forged. The women of the town brought so much food there was enough to feed twice the number of guests. Willa walked down the aisle alone, having no family to give her away, but she did not look sad. She looked radiant, her green eyes shining with joy as she saw Owen waiting for her at the altar. Owen felt his throat tighten as she approached. She was so beautiful, so brave, so entirely perfect, and somehow she had chosen him. Pastor Freeman performed the ceremony, speaking about love and commitment and the power of 2 people choosing to face the world together. When it came time for the vows, Owen and Willa spoke them clearly and firmly, their voices ringing out through the small church. "I, Owen, take you, Willa, to be my lawfully wedded wife," Owen said, his voice thick with emotion. "I promise to love you, protect you, cherish you, and stand by your side through whatever comes. You are my home, my heart, my everything." "I, Willa, take you, Owen, to be my lawfully wedded husband," Willa said, tears streaming down her face. "I promise to love you, support you, believe in you, and walk through life with you. You saved me, not just from chains, but from losing hope. You are my miracle, my love, my future." When Pastor Freeman pronounced them man and wife, the church erupted in cheers. Owen kissed Willa deeply, not caring who was watching, pouring everything he felt into that kiss. When they finally broke apart, both of them were crying and laughing. The celebration lasted into the night. There was music and dancing and more food than anyone could eat. Owen danced with his new wife under the stars, holding her close and marveling at how his life had changed in just a few short weeks. He had started out that day in the canyon just wanting to get home, and instead he had found something infinitely more precious. He had found love. As the party wound down and guests started heading home, Owen and Willa returned to the ranch together. It felt different now, walking into the house as husband and wife. Everything looked the same, but everything had changed. "I cannot believe this is real," Willa said softly, standing in the middle of the main room and looking around. "I keep thinking I am going to wake up back in that wagon, still chained, still waiting for someone to come." Owen came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist, pulling her back against his chest. "This is real," he murmured into her hair. "You are here. You are safe. You are loved. And you are home." Willa turned in his arms and kissed him, soft and sweet at first, then deeper, more urgent. Owen picked her up, and she wrapped her legs around his waist as he carried her into the bedroom. They made love slowly, tenderly, learning each other's bodies and hearts in the quiet darkness. Afterward, they lay tangled together, skin against skin, hearts beating in sync. "I love you," Willa whispered, tracing patterns on Owen's chest with her fingertip. "I love you too," Owen replied, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "More than I thought it was possible to love someone." "What do you think our life will be like?" Willa asked. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, Owen thought about that. "I think we will have expanded the ranch," he said. "Maybe doubled our herd, maybe built a bigger house. I think we will have friends and neighbors we can count on, and I think we will have children. Lots of children if we are lucky." Willa smiled. "I would like that," she said. "I would like to fill this house with love and laughter, to give our children the kind of happy, stable home I lost when my parents died." "We will," Owen promised. "We will build something beautiful together." They fell asleep in each other's arms, peaceful and content, dreaming of the future. Life on the ranch settled into a comfortable rhythm. Owen continued working the land and tending his cattle, while Willa managed the house and started a small garden near the creek. She had a natural talent for growing things, and soon they had fresh vegetables to supplement their diet. She also started taking in sewing work from women in town, mending and altering clothes for a small fee that helped supplement their income. In November, 4 months after their wedding, Willa came to Owen with news that made his heart soar. She was expecting a baby. Owen was beside himself with joy and terror in equal measure. He fretted over Willa constantly, insisting she rest more, work less, take better care of herself. Willa tolerated his hovering with good humor, teasing him gently about being an overprotective husband. "Women have been having babies since the beginning of time," she reminded him. "I will be fine." But Owen could not help worrying. He had already lost so much in his life. The thought of losing Willa or their child was unbearable. He made Maria Rodriguez promise to be there when the baby came, since Maria had helped deliver half the babies in Florence over the years. He made sure they had everything they might need, from clean linens to medicine, to baby clothes that Maria and the other women made. Winter passed slowly, each day bringing them closer to the birth. Willa's belly grew round and full, and Owen loved to rest his hand there and feel the baby kick. They talked endlessly about names, about whether it would be a boy or a girl, about what kind of parents they wanted to be. "I want them to know they are safe," Willa said one evening as they sat by the fire. "I want them to grow up never doubting that they are loved and protected." "They will," Owen assured her. "They will have the best mother in the world. You will make sure of that." In late May of 1877, almost a year after Owen had found Willa chained to that wagon in the canyon, their son was born. It was a long labor, lasting nearly 20 hours, and Owen paced outside the bedroom like a caged animal while Maria and another woman from town helped Willa through it. When he finally heard the baby cry, strong and healthy and loud, he nearly collapsed with relief. Maria came out smiling broadly. "You have a son," she said, "and your wife is tired but well. You can go in now." Owen rushed into the bedroom and stopped short at the sight before him. Willa was propped up against pillows, her hair damp with sweat and her face exhausted, but she was smiling as she looked down at the tiny bundle in her arms. She looked up when she heard Owen enter, and the love in her eyes took his breath away. "Come meet your son," she said softly. Owen approached slowly, almost reverently, and looked down at the baby. He was red-faced and wrinkled, with a surprising amount of dark hair and tiny fists that waved in the air. He was the most beautiful thing Owen had ever seen, except for his mother. "Can I hold him?" Owen asked nervously. Willa carefully transferred the baby into Owen's arms, showing him how to support the head. Owen looked down at his son, this tiny person who was half him and half Willa, and felt tears streaming down his face. "Hello there," he whispered. "I am your father. And I promise you, I am going to do everything in my power to make sure you have a good life, a safe life, a happy life." The baby yawned and settled into Owen's arms like he belonged there. "What should we name him?" Willa asked. They had discussed names for months but had never quite settled on one. Now, looking at his son, Owen knew exactly what felt right. "Samuel," he said. "After Samuel Wright, who stood with us when we needed him, and his middle name should be Freeman after Pastor Freeman." "Samuel Freeman Sinclair," Willa said, trying it out. She smiled. "It is perfect." The years that followed were the happiest of Owen's life. Samuel grew into a strong, curious boy with his mother's green eyes and his father's steady temperament. When he was 2, Willa became pregnant again, and they welcomed a daughter they named Grace Maria, after the concept of grace that had saved them both and the woman who had helped bring both their children into the world. The ranch prospered. Owen hired 2 ranch hands to help with the growing herd, and they built a second barn and expanded the house to accommodate their growing family. Willa's garden flourished, and she started selling produce in town along with her sewing work. They were not rich, but they were comfortable, and more importantly, they were happy. Jack Callahan was convicted and sentenced to 20 years in prison. The trial had been a sensation, with multiple women testifying about his crimes. The judge had been harsh in his sentencing, making it clear that such behavior would not be tolerated in Arizona territory. It had sent a message, and the trafficking of women had decreased significantly in the area as a result. Some of the women who had been freed in the aftermath of Callahan's arrest stayed in Florence, building new lives for themselves. Willa became friends with several of them, and they formed a support network for each other. Owen watched his wife bloom as she helped these women heal, just as she herself had healed. When Samuel was 5 and Grace was 3, Willa told Owen she was pregnant again. This time it was twins, 2 boys they named Matthew and Daniel. The house was full of noise and laughter and chaos, and Owen loved every minute of it. He would come in from working the ranch to find Willa surrounded by children, reading to them or teaching them songs or cleaning up some mess they had made, and his heart would swell with so much love he thought it might burst. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Owen and Willa stood on the porch of their ranch house, watching their 4 children play in the yard. Samuel was 10 now, tall for his age and already helping with the ranch work. Grace was 8, sweet and gentle, always mothering her younger brothers. Matthew and Daniel were 5 identical twins who were into everything and kept Willa constantly on her toes. "Can you believe it has been 10 years?" Willa asked, leaning against Owen's side. "Sometimes it feels like yesterday," Owen said. "I can still see you chained to that wagon, looking up at me with those green eyes. I knew in that moment that my life was about to change, but I had no idea how much." "You saved me," Willa said softly. "In every way a person can be saved." "We saved each other," Owen corrected. "You gave me purpose, love, a family. Before you, I was just existing, going through the motions. You taught me what it means to truly live." Willa turned in his arms and kissed him, slow and deep. Even after 10 years and 4 children, the spark between them had never dimmed. If anything, it had grown stronger, tempered by shared hardship and joy into something unbreakable. "I love you, Owen Sinclair," Willa said. "More today than the day I married you, and I will love you more tomorrow than today." "I love you too," Owen replied. "For the rest of my life and whatever comes after." They stood together, watching their children and their ranch and the wide Arizona sky turning gold with sunset. And Owen thought about that day 10 years ago when he almost rode past a wagon in a canyon. He thought about how one choice, one moment of deciding to do the right thing, had led to everything he held dear. Life was not always easy. They had faced droughts and illness, financial hardship, and the endless work of maintaining a ranch and raising a family. But they had faced it all together, and that made all the difference. As the sun set and Willa called the children in for dinner, Owen took one last look at the land he had built his life on. The ranch was bigger now, more prosperous, but it was the people inside the house that made it a home. Willa, who had survived horrors that would have broken most people and emerged stronger and kinder for it. Samuel, Grace, Matthew, and Daniel, who would grow up knowing they were loved unconditionally and that their parents would always stand together no matter what. This was the life Owen had built from one moment of compassion in a desert canyon. This was the legacy of choosing to see another person's suffering and refusing to look away. And as he followed his family inside to a table laden with food and surrounded by laughter, Owen knew that he would make that same choice 1,000 times over. Years continued to pass, each one adding new layers to their story. When Samuel turned 18 in 1895, he took over more of the ranch operations, showing a natural talent for managing cattle and land. He was a good man, raised by good parents, and Owen was proud of him. Grace at 16 had become a teacher at the small school in Florence, carrying on her grandfather's legacy though she had never known him. The twins, now 13, were still inseparable, working together on the ranch and planning to eventually split off and start their own spread nearby. Willa was 42 now, her dark hair touched with silver at the temples, but to Owen she was as beautiful as the day he found her. She moved with more deliberation now, her body bearing the marks of 4 pregnancies and years of hard work, but her spirit was undiminished. She still tended her garden, still took in sewing, still welcomed anyone who needed help into their home. On a spring evening in 1896, Owen and Willa sat on their porch as they had done countless times before. Their children were grown or nearly grown, building their own lives while remaining close to home. The ranch was stable and successful. They had weathered every storm together and come out stronger. "You ever think about that day?" Willa asked quietly. "The day you found me?" "All the time," Owen admitted. "I think about how close I came to riding past. I was tired, focused on getting home. If the wagon had been 50 feet further off the trail, I might have missed it entirely." "But you did not miss it," Willa said. "You saw me. You stopped. You freed me. And you gave me a life I never could have imagined." "You gave me a life I never could have imagined," Owen countered. "4 beautiful children, a home filled with love, a purpose beyond just surviving." He took her hand, the gesture as natural as breathing after nearly 20 years together. "I was half a person before I met you. You made me whole." Willa rested her head on his shoulder. "We made each other whole," she said. "That is what love does. It does not complete us because we were always complete, but it makes us better, stronger, more than we could be alone." They sat in comfortable silence as the stars came out, the same stars that had witnessed their first kiss, their wedding, the birth of their children, every important moment of their lives together. The desert was cooling down after the heat of the day, and somewhere in the distance, a coyote called to its mate. "If you could go back," Willa said suddenly, "knowing everything that would happen, all the fear and danger and hardship, would you still stop at that wagon?" Owen did not even have to think about it. "Every single time," he said. "I would stop 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times, because every path leads to this moment right here. You and me together with a life and a family and a love that most people only dream about. That is worth any hardship. That is worth everything." Willa lifted her head and kissed him, and in that kiss was 20 years of love, trust, partnership, and devotion. When they finally broke apart, both of them had tears in their eyes. "Thank you," Willa whispered, "for seeing me when I needed to be seen. For breaking my chains. For bringing me home." "You are my home," Owen said. "You always have been. From the moment I saw those green eyes looking up at me, I was home." As they sat together under the vast Arizona sky, surrounded by the ranch they had built and the family they had created, Owen Sinclair knew that his life had turned out exactly as it was meant to. Not easy, not simple, but full of love and purpose and meaning. He had been a cowboy who saw a woman chained to a wagon. He had broken the lock and taken her home. And in doing so, he had found his own home, his own heart, his own reason for being. It was a story he would tell their grandchildren someday, when Samuel and Grace and the twins had children of their own. He would tell them about the power of choosing compassion over convenience, about the strength it takes to love someone fully, about the life that can bloom from a single moment of courage. But for now, he simply held his wife close and thanked whatever force had guided his horse down that canyon trail on a hot July afternoon in 1876. That moment had changed everything. That moment had given him everything, and he would be grateful for it every day for the rest of his life. The desert wind whispered through the scrub brush, carrying with it the scent of sage and possibility. Inside the house, a lamp flickered to life as one of their children lit it. The sound of laughter drifted out through the open windows, young voices talking and joking as they prepared for bed. This was home. This was love. This was the life that had grown from chains broken and hearts opened, and it was more than enough. It was everything,